Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want documentaries, I got ones about space, sharks, or superstars. Football, how about the Premier League? Or how about thrillers? They're going to be on the edge of their seats with these. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto renew, terms apply.
And actually, the US as a consumer has got a job and wage prices are going up. So that is an overall quite a supportive narrative for earnings. Yes, manufacturing is jumping around as US-China trade woes ebb and flow. But actually, as our basis, 77% of the US economy is a consumer, and that's looking positive.
And I take your point around the fundamentals. I'm just reviewing the two-year performance of some of the US markets. And Mike, perhaps you have a view on this too. If you look at that, there's been elements of time you've been sort of set up for reversals. And I just wonder whether we're now getting set up for some other drop on the stock market as we all count down to some form of the Santa Claus rally. What do you think?
I think this was one of our concerns. I mean, our view for the last probably 4 to 6 months has been a strategic overweight to equities, however, tactical caution on the basis of this Fed mismatch. As that story's become, I think, more tired, and actually we've seen that kind of reversal, I think yes, there is a chance of more equity volatility, but we think there's a reduced chance of a major correction. Because I think quite a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines with higher cash levels, waiting for an entry point. And when we've seen that in history, the entry point tends not to appear.
Mike, you used the word tide before, but does tide necessarily mean a sell-off in the indices?
No, not at all. I think I think tired basically leads to a shift, and they embrace those PE differentials in other markets. And I think the dollar becomes very relevant, because if the dollar is, let's say, equilibrium-y, and it doesn't send strong directional signals, that's good enough for that shift to happen.
I agree.
So on balance, I think it's positive for risk generally. A correction is going to be driven by some, as we head into next year. I would have thought, we're looking for, if the problem is the Fed's going to be constrained because they're not going to want to look like they're capitulating. So in essence, their threshold probably for lowering further is higher than it would otherwise be, would be my guess, because they don't want to be seen as aiding Trump as we head into next year. And then if he doesn't resolve the trade problems, and if we go into next year and the economy is weak, I would say, God forbid, the things he'll do to make sure he gets elected. Right, so the idea of Iran remains a chip in his arsenal. So we have to think that geopolitical risk is a very, very significant consequence of economic weakness in the U.S. next year.
And actually, US-China trade is a really good example of something that is in Trump's arsenal. I mean, it is one of those things that he is able to flex. It's one of the reasons we don't think there's going to be any substantive, complete deal anytime soon, because it's one of the ways he can influence the Fed, for example.
But he needs to put that to bed before the election, because if it's still in play and the weakness in investment that you were talking about before, Jeff, continues in 2020, he's got an electoral problem.
I completely agree. I think it's the timing in 2020, isn't it? I mean, it's at what point does it need to deploy to be able to supercharge the economy ahead of November 2020? And it's probably not quite yet. It probably is probably sometime in mid-2020 rather than now.
Yeah, I would argue he doesn't need to supercharge it. He just needs to keep the consumer as happy as they are right now.
What happened to that theory that we weren't meant to time markets? It's just gone out the window with all this tactical trading these days. And we'll pick up the conversation in just a moment. Meantime, a couple of stocks to take a look at. Novo Nordisk reported mixed results in the third quarter. Operating profit missed estimates. However, net income for the period beat expectations thanks to stronger demand for its diabetes and obesity treatments. The Danish drug maker increased its full-year sales outlook but flagged the impact of pricing pressures in the United States, the share price popping just over 1%. Forces Clear, we were just talking to the company a short time ago. It has backed its guidance for 2019, saying its adjusted operating profit margin for the year should be at the higher end of its range. The Dutch publisher also announced it is expanding its share buyback program to 350 million euros, the stock modestly weaker.
Coming up on the show, new data out of China confounds expectations against a backdrop of trade war worries. We explain after the break.
The flock blindly falls into formation. Flying south for the winter, they never stray from their predetermined path. But this season, a more thrilling journey is calling. defy the laws of human nature at the Season of Audi sales event.
Robinhood believes now is the time to do money. Without the commission fees and account minimums, so you can start investing today, wherever you are, even on the bus. Ooh, like this guy. Yeah, I bet he's investing right now. He's taking charge. He's grabbing the bull by the horns, and he just missed his stop. Yeah, it's time to do money. So what are you waiting for? Download now and get your first stock on us. Robinhood.
A hard 20 after a hard day isn't for everyone. Waking up before the sun isn't for everyone. But at $58 a month, Peloton is for anyone who wants it.
Do you have concerns about mild memory loss related to aging? Prevagen is the #1 pharmacist-recommended memory support brand. You can find it in the vitamin aisle in stores everywhere. Prevagen, healthier brain, better life.
Hi, I'm Joan London. Today's senior living communities have never been better, and nobody understands your options like the advisors at A Place for Mom. A Place for Mom is a free service to help you find a place that fits your parents' budget, needs, and personalities. Call today. A Place for Mom. You know your family. We know senior living. Together, we'll make the right choice.
Call A Place for Mom to get your free ebook on financing senior care. Call 1-800-211-0451.
We are the dreamers.
We changed the world.
Because we don't give up.
IU can help you live your dream.
IU is an online college, so your campus is wherever you want it to be.
Take classes when you want to take classes.
You receive the tools you need at no extra cost.
Even a brand new laptop and tablet to use in school.
Call IU, then tell them your dream.
1-800-967-1179. 1-800-967-1179.
Brian Sullivan, Worldwide Exchange, 5 a.m. Eastern on CNBC. Will the job slowdown get worse? Helping you dent what the GM strike make on October's employment report. The numbers, instant reaction, and analysis. Today on Squawk Box.
Welcome back, everybody. China's manufacturing sector grew at its fastest pace in over 2 years in October as the country's factories seemed to offset ongoing trade tensions with Washington. The Caixin manufacturing PMI rose to 51.7, a third consecutive month of growth. The renewed increase in export business boosted new orders and output. However, data from Beijing Statistics Bureau released earlier this week showed the sector contracted for a sixth straight month. A new location for the signing of a Phase 1 trade deal between the US and China will be announced soon, according to President Trump. The two sides had intended to sign a deal at a summit in Chile, but the conference was cancelled amid unrest in the South American country. Lead negotiators from both sides will continue talks today over the phone, according to the Chinese Commerce Ministry. We did get a foreign ministry comment from the Chinese side earlier, suggesting that Macau isn't actually in the running. There had been some speculation that Macau might be the location. Macau's not a bad destination. Many happy years spent in the Casino Lisboa and popping to Fernando's for the crab.
Plenty of accommodation too, plenty of restaurants.
Well, there is
integrated
now,
resorts.
Yeah. All right, so we'll keep an eye on how that story progresses. Meanwhile, the ongoing strike at General Motors is expected to weigh heavily on October's non-farm payrolls figures, with just 75,000 jobs expected to have been added to the U.S. economy. Now, 46,000 GM workers are already confirmed to be out of work, while the strike has impacted the automaker's suppliers. The monthly unemployment rate is forecast to have risen to 3.6%, while average hourly earnings are expected to have risen just slightly by 0.3%. In other economic news out of the U.S., the ISM manufacturing data out today could also give a greater insight into the health of the U.S. economy, with forecasts pointing to a continued contraction in activity. Dow Jones is forecasting a reading of 49.1, an improvement on September, but it would still be a third straight month of contraction for the sector. Manufacturing has been weighed down by ongoing trade tensions, the GM strike, and the Boeing MAX suspension. Let's get back to our guests around the desk with us. as Ed Park Investment Director Brooks McDonald, and our guest host, Michael Harris, founder of Cribstone Strategic Macro. So we had a pretty extensive discussion around the Fed and the economic picture just before the break. But one story that isn't getting a lot of light from a market's perspective are the impeachment proceedings. And we got some progress over the last 24 hours with the House passing a resolution laying out the framework effectively for this to proceed. Is there anything to be concerned about medium term here from a market's point of view?
So I think quite a lot of what's gone through over the last 24 hours is about bringing everything into the public eye. That was one of the criticisms. It was all done behind closed doors. And part of that is to start building a bit of political pressure against Donald Trump. Because, I mean, regardless of everything else, the actual trial, for want of a better word, takes place in the Senate. And the Senate is, as we know, Republican-controlled. So really, for anything to actually be successful there, we need a real smoking gun, and for there to be actually a lot of political momentum against Donald Trump at that point. That's still not our base case. We think actually there might be a bit of embarrassment potentially for Donald Trump coming into November 2020. But again, you know, as Pelosi has said many a time, there is a slight concern actually this might galvanize some Trump support. So at the moment, I don't think it's a major market worry.
All right, so a bit of noise at this point for markets. Michael, I want to bring you back to a comment you made earlier around business investment and how important this is as an indicator of where we go from here in terms of economic growth. So what do you think is actually going to unlock CapEx spending in the U.S.?
Well, one, I think certainty just on trade, because right now you can't decide where you're going to put plant, right? So you want to automate, there's wage pressure, unemployment's low, you need to automate, you need to improve productivity, where do I do it? And those decisions don't happen often, so there's no reason why you wouldn't wait to see where there's clarity, because you don't want to be in an environment where you've just taken a 10 or 15 year investment and squandered most of it from day one. So I think that clarity is absolutely essential to begin with. And then secondly, I think from a political perspective, there's the impeachment issue. My guess is something that plays in headlines and creates a sense of added uncertainty. But the reality is it's only going to manifest itself if Trump is polling 30% and the Republicans basically say we need to ditch him, right? Then we need a new white knight to come in at the last minute. So on balance, I think there's no risk associated with impeachment whatsoever, because as you say, it's their choice and it's just a tactical game in the pre-election period. So I really think it comes down to Trump's sensitivity in that environment will be how does he respond to 30% polling numbers? There might be a Republican out, but that's not good for Trump. So in the interim, does he go to geopolitics? And I think, we cannot forget Iran. When you have torn up an agreement and put Iran in this space, all we need is one provocative action from Iran. Basically, people gave Trump a hard time for not following through on the retaliation against Iran associated with hitting the oil facilities in Saudi. So he's got political backing to do something if he wants to, and that's where you see this over and over. It's a template that works everywhere in the world. When you're not popular, create a sense of national crisis. And Trump, more than anyone, I think, will pull that trigger. So, when we think about the medium-term risks associated with business sentiment, I wouldn't take that off the table until it's clear that Trump's in a space where either he feels confident or he's indicated enough that Iran's not going to fall into that trap has to be another issue as well. And I wouldn't take that as a given, because there are two forces of control in Iran and some that would actually like to provoke. So I think there are some bigger issues here. And of course, Brexit's going to be very relevant if we don't get that single party majority for the Tories, or if we get Corbyn. I think that's going to add to a meaningful sense of risk off globally as well.
Just a self-help here, because I get what you're saying about the fundamental picture, but one of the remarkable phenomena of this market has been the way in which the corporates have bolstered their own share price performance through a process of buybacks. I mean, we've still got a massive Apple buyback program to run through the fourth quarter, but companies don't seem reluctant to raise money given the very low interest rates we see here and to buy back shares. To what extent is this going to be a prop for the market in the fourth quarter?
I don't think that's going to gigantically change. Whether it happens in the fourth quarter on the back of 3 quarters of negative earnings growth, it remains to be seen. I mean, that might be more of a feature of 2020. 2020, the estimate is still for 8.5% US earnings growth over that year. If we saw numbers like that would definitely be a spur to actually start buyback programs again. I think launching buyback programs and increasing leverage when your earnings are faltering a bit, it sends a slightly more interesting message to the market. If things are a bit more positive, I think that's a good backdrop.
Yeah, I mean, interesting that we did see second quarter buybacks drop about 18% on the first quarter. So whether that happens or not, we'll have to wait and see.
Fluid today, though, did it? So it's not a real band-aid for stock performance at this point for every company. Why is that? Do you think investors are more laser-focused on the earnings at this point? I mean, we had all that IPO news where everybody questioned the pace of growth and whether profits were at the end of the tunnel for some of these companies. Do you think that's sort of switched over to some of the mainstream companies too, where investors have metrics they want ticked off?
I think people are looking at the metrics, and I think they're looking not only at the metrics but about the wording of what people are saying. As we've had quite a lot of earnings results where they may have, let's say, beaten on revenues but missed on profits. And actually, with a bit of kind of warm words around 2020, it's still been quite supportive for the market. But markets have been quite discerning at the moment, I would say, and I think they're punishing those that are underperforming and rewarding those that are performing. And I think part of that is because there is this growing perception that the Federal Reserve isn't there to save everything. So we're moving less in terms of big macro moves, and actually we're a slightly healthier market in terms of corporates and responding to that. So overall, that again, I think sets a slightly rosier backdrop.
It has been an eventful earnings season, hasn't it, in terms of reactions to the upside and downside. Ed Park with us, Investment Director at Brooks Macdonald, and Michael Harris staying with us, our guest host.
Still ahead on the show, another technology giant prepares to wade into the streaming wars. We'll have more after the break.
For drug-free sinus and allergy relief, experience Navage.
We just got back from a beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
It's another Friday morning. Yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Why is Lizzie going rental for Fizzy Haze? Is it because her flat is so beautiful and spacious? Snazzy! Or has roof terrace, garden and party room? Surprising! Or because it's 18 minutes to Paddington? Easy! With friendly staff on hand to take any deliveries? Amazing! Or just because her fuzzy friend can live there too? Find your new home at fizzyhaze.com. Fizzy Living. Reinventing renting.
They don't chant your name when you give blood, or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
The B&Q 3 for 2 offer is now on, including an unmissable 3 for 2 on all paint, such as Dulux, Valspar and Farrow & Ball. For this show-stopping deal, hurry to B&Q. You can do it when you're 3 for 2 it. Every third item per single transaction in descending price order free. Offer ends November 3rd. See DIY.com.
Higher to start November in the green after Chinese manufacturing data lifts spirits despite lingering concerns over a trade deal with the U.S. Halloween celebrations turn sinister in Hong Kong as police fire tear gas at protesters ahead of another weekend of mass demonstrations. President Trump wades into British politics, saying opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn would be so bad for the UK, while impeachment proceedings ramp up back home. Danske Bank slumps to the bottom of the stock 600 as the Danish lender says 2019 profits will be at the lower end of forecasts, while the money laundering scandal in Estonia rolls on. Well, as you can see behind me, we're now about a half an hour into trade on the first day of November. We're coming off of a fairly decent month for European stocks in October, and that positive momentum has carried through today. The stock 600 up about 0.4%. Now, worth noting that this session, it comes on the back of a encouraging set of data from the Chinese, and that came in the form of the Caixin manufacturing PMI, which showed that the manufacturing sector expanded at the fastest pace in 2.5 years. So a bit of a bright spot coming out of China overnight. In terms of earnings, we do have some more earnings coming through in Europe today, but the pace of earnings coming through is certainly slower than we've seen earlier this week. So investors getting a little bit of a breather there on the earnings front. And of course, all eyes on the non-farm payrolls report due out later today. Well, let's dive into the sectors and see what the split looks like. What's gaining most this morning? We've got a bit of a bounce for real estate, travel and leisure, basic resources, and industrials. Worth noting yesterday that basic resources was one of the key underperforming sectors. On the downside this morning, we've got banks trading in the red, down about 0.3%. One stock in there in particular, we just mentioned in the headlines, Danske Bank dragging down that index. Utilities down at the bottom here, about 5 basis points lower. Again, this is a bit of a contrast to yesterday when we saw the more defensive parts of the sector, in particular utilities, outperform. Let's take a look at the single stocks. Danske Bank, one to certainly watch throughout the day. Shares nearly 5% lower this morning after their result earlier on. DSV Panalpina outperforming the index, up nearly 9%, just over the 8% mark. They came out with a positive result there after the Panalpina deal. So this is the picture in terms of single stocks, but the overall message as we head toward non-farm payrolls later is a positive for European stocks. Guys?
And let's talk about streaming. Apple's streaming service, Apple TV Plus, will launch today in the US as the tech giant hopes to capitalize on its direct access to mobile users for growth in the increasingly crowded streaming space. Sector veterans Netflix, Hulu and Amazon will also be joined by Disney Plus later this month, and HBO is also set to launch its own service, HBO Max, in May 2020. Ed Barton joins us, Chief Analyst Entertainment at Ovum. Ed, exciting times for streaming wars. Who wins? Because Apple's got the device. Now Apple's going to have a streaming service. Can it actually make headroads into this industry when it's a bit of a latecomer in a sense versus, say, Netflix and Amazon?
In your introduction, you mentioned that Apple is trying to leverage its direct access to the mobile users, the people that use handsets. So what we know from launch is that Apple will be giving 12 months of free access to pretty much all new purchases of Apple handsets, Apple tablets, Apple TV streaming boxes. This is somewhere around 180 million to 200 million device sales a year. So Apple immediately has a huge on-ramp to quickly gain volume in new subscribers. Of course, it still has to make great shows.
You can see the logic, trying to get the subscriber numbers up straight away by giving it away for free. Absolutely, but then you also set the scene that this is not going to be a service that you pay for. You start to get the expectation that it's going to be for free. So how do you switch those users over to becoming paid ones down the track?
You are correct that in 12 months' time, Apple has a big job on its hand to make sure that this huge river of free users does, a reasonable percentage does convert into a paid subscription. Look, how do you keep an audience interested? How do you keep them paying? You make great content, preferably that you can't find anywhere else. So Apple is launching with what we would argue is a relatively thin volume of shows compared to the other streaming giants. But it has a lot of money, it has some great people working for it, and it's got 12 months to make a credible argument that now you should start paying $4.99 a month.
And one of the key questions here that we've yet to really get an answer to is around how recession-proof these subscription services will be. And Jeff has raised this point for months here. As we pile on the number of subscription services we have, the question becomes, if we do start to see a more severe downturn in the economy, how many of those services do we cut? So what's your early indication in terms of how cyclical these subscription streaming services are going to be?
Our research indicates that in the US, households are quite happy to take an average of between 3 and 5 online video subscription services. So we are coming towards the end of a bull market. I would argue the American consumer is currently feeling reasonably wealthy, relatively speaking. We do have a suspicion that should hard economic times hit the American consumer, then perhaps, if you've got 4 or 5 services, perhaps you're going to drop the 4th and the 5th least favorite. All of these services now are jockeying for position to be one of your first favorite or second favorite video services. We think Netflix or Amazon has already got first spots. So there's not a huge amount to fight for.
Michael. And to what degree, though, is this a defensive move by Apple where effectively they're trying to sell handsets as opposed to leverage the handsets that they've already got? They're trying to use this to get people across the line. Does it really reflect a desire to set up a freestanding business, or is this sort of masking a fear that Apple has about where it's headed in terms of the consumer?
I don't think it's a fearful move on the part of Apple. I think it's rounding out what is already probably one of the broadest, deepest, and most tightly integrated ecosystem of consumer devices and services out there. We've seen Apple bringing on stream things like, the Apple credit card going deeper into payments over the last year. The video piece hasn't really evolved since, Apple has had a great business selling movies and TV shows through iTunes, but it never really evolved as players like YouTube, as Netflix came onto the scene. So, I don't believe Apple's fearful. I believe it's a positive move, and I believe it's like much else in the Apple ecosystem, sure, to drive device sales, but also to make your life as comfortable as possible once you're in.
One of the challenges for all of these businesses to define the moat, at least to protect themselves. And interesting that Netflix, I think, has an issue around the number of devices that you can actually log on from. Half the kids in my daughter's class seem to use the one log-on to get access to Netflix that somebody's parent pays for.
Right.
If Netflix were to actually say, you know what, there's a restriction on how many devices you can, if they'd reduce the number maybe to 2, would that result in higher subscription numbers for them, or how do they
theoretically speaking? I mean, there's always a kind of a balancing act between trying to get as much money out of people and making their lives as easy as possible. One of the reasons why Netflix grew so quickly is because it is by far and away the most convenient, the most easy to use service. And one of the aspects of that was multiple logins for a single payment. Yeah. So, I would argue that they're probably going to be kind of eroding a little bit of their, customer friendliness, fluffiness. You want if you own a video service, you want people to watch it. You know what I mean? Right. So
away from the fluffiness, the word you just used, I want to ask you about news.
Sure.
Because what jumps out to me is that the cord cutting could be accelerated, and that you could see a shift towards content players, Netflix, Disney, Apple, that don't produce news. And as we come up to an election year, how do you fund the overheads of news organizations when you see that dramatic shift that's already been happening in the industry?
Sure. Well, I mean, OTT video subscription services can also include news programming.
But they don't for these companies.
These ones don't, but there are a number of other OTT services which do. So, we would expect the news ecosystem to over time gain more funding from digital as opposed to traditional TV. You raise a very, very pertinent question about the broader question of funding news overall, when a lot of people are getting their news from very low revenue sources such as a social media platform or a messaging platform. I honestly don't think that problem has been completely resolved yet. On the one hand, we have the make sure your owner is a billionaire and Jeff Bezos and the Washington Post, or on the other hand, perhaps you look at your news gathering organization as an important part of a broader TV offering. But news is very important for local TV audiences, for more targeted TV audiences. So that's where we would expect broadcasters to be placing more emphasis going forward. But it's absolutely a difficult and unsolved problem currently.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up, Ed. Thanks so much for coming in. Good to see that you're a second Ed on the programme this morning. I don't know, that's not quite a record.
We're going to go for the hat trick.
Yeah, let's see if we can find another Ed to bring on later on in the programme.
Michael Harris is with us, apparently.
He's a secret Ed, isn't he? Just hides it in the middle name.
A secret.
Ed Barton, Chief Analyst for Entertainment at Ovum. And Michael is going to stay with us, of course. Moving on, let's give you the retail sales numbers out of Hong Kong. We're poised for bad numbers, I have to say. And I think on the face of it, these numbers have met the lowered expectations that the market had. September retail sales negative 20.4% by volume, negative 18.3% by value. The Hong Kong government already saying that they expect these weak numbers because of the consequence of the protests that we've seen there. So subdued economic outlook, dampening consumer sentiment here, and that's showing up very strongly in the data points we're seeing at this stage. The one curiosity to this, and if I might just ask this question, Michael, it's not really moving the needle on the Hang Seng Index headline number or really on property prices per se. Is that because there are enough mainland buyers queued up to buy whenever the international seller sells?
I think that's a reasonable assumption, but it's also probably a view that this won't end catastrophically. That they're effectively, Beijing is showing a lot of restraint, and you know, the question is, it still needs to be resolved at some stage. So it is probably one of those added lingering geopolitical risks, because there's the the worry was always, how does Taiwan read this, right? That if Beijing shows too much liberty there, does that put in place? So on balance, I think it's reassuring that that people that are so close to it don't feel the sense of crisis around the corner.
Now, in terms of how we do get the situation resolved, what is your expectation there? I mean, there has been reports about Carrie Lam being replaced, but it's not clear who she would be replaced by. So what are the kind of a range of outcomes that you're looking at here?
Yeah, I don't have a super strong view in terms of individuals or what, ultimately what Beijing endorses, but I think, clearly there needs to be some change in personnel that is meaningful enough to effectively take the steam out of the debate. And so it's interesting that it's taking so long to manifest itself.
Let's squeeze in a quick break. Coming up on the show, President Trump gives his take on the UK's upcoming election with some harsh words for Jeremy Corbyn. Find out how the Labour leader responds.
Cover-up spray here. Cheaper aerosols can cover up odors in a...
It's another Friday morning. Yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick, and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way, based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
It's hard to find a children's gift which doesn't have a short shelf life. They'll eat all the chocolates in 5 minutes, finish their video games by the end of the week, and grow out of their trainers before you know it. So instead of buying them something just for Christmas, buy them something that's for life. Premium bonds from NS&I. Every month they'll have the chance to win cash prizes. And now you can buy premium bonds for any child. Start their savings journey from just £25. Search Gift Premium Bonds to find out more.
We've been together 3 years. We both love travel, and luckily we've got the same taste in music. Next year, we're planning a big road trip, and my wife's coming too. It'll be nice. The three of us don't do enough together. We know how much your Mini means to you. That's why Mini Service offers an array of convenient options and allows you to book online anytime at mini.co.uk. Because we love your Mini almost as much as you do. Search Mini Service. Who's in? T's and C's apply, subject to availability, participating retailers only.
At Wickes, right now, there's 15% off our wide range of tiles and flooring, on top of existing offers. In-store and at wickes.co.uk. Ends Monday. Terms apply.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and V Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want dramas, I've got all the big shows from Sky Atlantic. Thrillers, they're going to be on the edge of their seats with these. Or how about football? I've got the Premier League. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto renew, terms apply.
Very quickly, England head into Saturday's Rugby World Cup final against South Africa as favourites, with head coach Eddie Jones insisting his side are ready to go. An outstanding performance in the semi-final against New Zealand saw England through, while the Springboks overcame Wales. Jones is forecasting an intense encounter on Saturday.
We've got one more opportunity to play well. So we want to play with no fear on Saturday. Just get out there and play the game. We know South Africa aren't going to give us the game. They're going to come hard. We've got to meet their physicality, but we're looking forward to that and then being able to impose our game on them.
And good luck to Wales, who play for runner-up place today against the Kiwis. Christine Lagarde has started her first day as president of the ECB as we say goodbye to Mario Draghi and hello to phase 2 of QE. Let's take a look back at when Draghi first announced the ECB's bond-buying programme through to when he wound it down and finally ramped it up again.
Today, the adoption of further balance sheet measures has become warranted to achieve our price stability objective, given that the key ECB interest rates have reached their lower bound. We will, on 9 March 2015, start purchasing euro-denominated public sector securities in a secondary market. We will also continue purchasing asset-backed securities and covered bonds, which we started last year. The Eurosystem will reinvest the principal payments from maturing securities purchased under the asset purchase program.
Davide Onyela joins us, economist at TS Lombard. Davide, good morning, welcome. Christine Lagarde, how is it going to be different?
Well, not much, I guess, because she hasn't got so many options. And so we see her chairmanship as a continuum with that of Mario Draghi in terms of monetary policy, also because she has limited experience as a central banker, so she will rely a lot on the ECB staff, as to some extent she did with the IMF staff. So we see her mostly as a follower. In this respect, I mean, the ECB will still be Draghi's ECB. Her role is mostly political in kind. This is something I guess most commentators have talked about, and she will try to force European governments into more spending, or maybe a central fiscal capacity, as they call it now, creating something more significant at European level to manage a common budget, which is a long shot. But
we always comb through the ECB data for indications of improvements in credit growth, and actually some of the data has not been too bad this year. And then we got the last set of numbers and it suggested that M3 actually is probably rolling over at this point. And yet we see some better performance in equity markets. What's your best guess as to what's going on with the fundamentals and also with confidence?
Well, I mean, to some extent, I guess people have discounted the fact that Europe is a slow-growing bloc. So, to some extent, this sort of data don't impact very much equities. Also, because in Europe, in some equity markets, you know, you have less depth than in the US or in other equity markets. So it's you know, the performance is sometimes driven by sector-specific factors, by single names. I mean, if you think of Spain, for example, it's a very small stock market, so maybe there are a couple of names that effectively drive Santander, or that drive the performance of the whole index. So maybe you may have some distortion due to those things. Then you have a big the big weight in terms of financials. So what financials do is maybe related to regulation or related to world economy in general is also relevant. So I guess this disconnect we have to live with. And yes, the credit data have been looking better, but there is in aggregate. But when you look at the aggregate, you never have a good picture of what's going on in Europe. You have to look at the single countries. So you also see a big divergence between what's going on in Italy, for example, still very negative in terms of credit growth, or Spain, and what's going on, for example, in France, where effectively corporate lending has increased.
How do you think Draghi's historical relevance to me is very much stemming the crisis and putting a firm line under it at a time of panic? And Lagarde, I think it'll be interesting. How will she respond to crisis, I guess, is my question. She took a very different view with Greece, as the IMF was arguing aggressively for debt relief, and Europe didn't want to go there. So she might not be able to force fiscal, but in a crisis, she might act very differently. So Italy, Greece, either of them have a debt crisis in the course of her tenure. How do you think she responds?
Well, I think she is there to manage in a bold way any possible crisis at a political level, because at technical level it's also hard to see how that could be possible to achieve. I mean, in the next downturn, the ECB will find itself with fewer instruments than Draghi had at the time, even if he actually was the one who invented most of these instruments, at least in Europe. So I have good expectations in terms of crisis management at political level, but we cannot expect the ECB to step up again and save the euro again, or save the bloc again.
What if they save the individual countries? Will she be more interventionist, perhaps?
I think it's hard to say, to be honest, from here. The more in the short term, the question I think it will be more interesting to ask, at least I tend to find an answer myself, is what's the reaction function to things like inflation? We haven't seen inflation expectations, for example, reacting in the past month after the meeting. So 5-year inflation swaps are very low, still around historical lows. The survey of professional forecasters is still at the historical low. I mean, the risk looks like it's skewed to the downside in terms of expectation.
I was going to say, you might be worrying about something that may never materialise during Christine Lagarde's tenure. I want to get to the type of figure she will be, though, because Mario Draghi over his time became particularly a divisive figure from the very start, where he was criticised by Italians because he was pushing back and calling for reforms. Then he was criticised by the Germans, the Austrians and the Dutch pension funds about his role in terms of destroying some of the savings for those in those countries. But when you look at Christine Lagarde, very warm words yesterday from Yanis Varoufakis, the former Greek finance minister, about her role in that Greek crisis. So you do wonder whether she can bring about more consensus and drive more reforms, where Draghi has just been preaching from a platform calling for it. Will she be more instrumental in those conversations on the ground in countries that she has been doing already at the IMF?
Yeah, possibly, yes. This week she took this kind of not very ritual steps of mentioning or name-shaming some countries for not spending enough, like Netherlands and Germany. Of course, she is not the president of the ECB yet, so the ECB has a specific policy about not naming countries or specific countries. But I guess she will be able, possibly, I hope so, she will be able to build a broader consensus around this fiscal side of the world that has been sort of overlooked in general. But I wouldn't be too optimistic about it, because it's very hard to do, and politicians have different set of incentives, and they have to cater to their own constituencies, and it's a slightly different thing. So I guess that she's more prepared to deal with this sort of thing.
She's been a finance minister as well, so she knows what that conversation looks like from the other side.
Is there an issue associated, because she's a product of French politics, effectively, whereas Draghi's more a product of markets, in a sense. So that I'm wondering about that interventionism, in the sense that if she can't convince, you say she's going to lose in terms of convincing governments. If she can't convince governments, then she creates a pretext for doing even more aggressive things, perhaps, and maybe she has a psychology of doing it. Because one of the things that's missing is the lending growth isn't happening where it should be happening. So using the ECB as a force to make sure that lending growth is very targeted. Do you think that's where we could be headed?
Yeah, the problem is that the monetary policy always has distributional effects, and targeting specific countries has even more distributional effects. It's obvious sort of backdoor transfers, as they call them. Yes. So as long as we don't break the loop with the fact that the European Union, the Eurozone is not a political union in the sense that it hasn't got a common budget that is strong enough, and you cannot justify really this sort of transfers by an institution that whose officials are not directly elected by the people. It's kind of hard to. All the
more reason they don't have to justify things, right? As long as they can get away with it.
Gents, we'll leave it on that. Okay. Thank you, Michael, for that contribution. Davide, nice to have you on the programme. Davide came to us from TS Lombard. Michael was with us from Cribstone Strategic Macro. That's the programme. Worldwide Exchange coming up next. Thanks for being with us all week. Squawkbox says bye-bye. Have a great weekend.
There's golf. And there's the golf lifestyle. Shop with Golf has everything you need to go from the drinks.
It's another Friday morning, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to enjoy a warm Bayesian welcome.
How are you doing? Enjoying the sunshine?
Fly from London Gatwick to Barbados with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £699 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Why is Lizzie going rental for Fizzy Haze? Is it because her flat is so beautiful and spacious? Snazzy! Or has roof terrace, garden and party room? Surprising! Or because it's 18 minutes to Paddington? Easy! With friendly staff on hand to take any deliveries? Amazing! Or just because her fuzzy friend can live there too? Find your new home at fizzyhaze.com. Fizzy Living, reinventing renting.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
There's It's a Friday Morning happy. Listening to a banger happy. There's no traffic on the M1 happy. The in-laws aren't coming round tomorrow happy. There's only 54 days until Christmas happy. It's first coffee of the day happy. Getting your car fixed before work happy. You get that kind of happy from QuickFit in Watford. Book online now at quickfit.com and drive away happy. Terms and conditions apply.
Oh no. 1 kebab, 4 cabs, 3 karaoke booths.
But really?
You can't always recall what you spent on a night out, but you could map the location of those transactions on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. Not available for every transaction. T's and C's apply.
A Friday bounce back. Wall Street trying to regain lost ground after posting its worst day in around 2 weeks. It's the jobs report countdown. Investors looking to the next key data point for the latest read on the health of the U.S. economy after that weaker than expected manufacturing number just yesterday. And Warren versus Cooperman, the next chapter. The chairman and CEO of Omega Advisors ripping into the top Democratic presidential candidate in a new letter. Then, a 5G rollout. Beijing takes one step closer to becoming a global telecom superpower. And then new salvos in the streaming wars. This time from Apple and Netflix as both companies debut their latest and greatest. It's Friday, November 1st, and Worldwide Exchange begins right now. Good morning, I'm Dominic Chu in for Brian Sullivan today. Your chart of the day has to be Pinterest. Shares are set to sink after its third quarterly report as a publicly traded company. Much more on that stock coming up, but check out that move, off by about 20% at this stage. Now, stock futures indicating what should be a decently modest open higher. The S&P would open up by about 5 points. The Dow Jones up by about 40. We've lost a little bit of momentum. And the NASDAQ up by about 20 points as well. The Dow is coming off its worst day since October 18th. And the S&P is trying to bounce back from its worst day since October 22nd. All of this on that weak Chicago Purchasing Managers Index data from yesterday. The bond market also a key focus as it is on Jobs Day for many parts of the economy. The 10-year note yield 1.69%, the 2-year note yield 1.53% there as well. Let us now go worldwide. In the Asian trade, we did see some reaction from data out of China. The Japan Nikkei off by 1/3%, but the Hang Seng and the Shanghai Composite both up nearly 1%. Now, China is a big focus of that. Manufacturing in that country unexpectedly rose to a 51.7 in October, its fastest pace of expansion since February of 2017. That's according to private sector Caixin manufacturing data. In Europe, we are seeing some of that positivity as well. Carry through the major bourses there. The German DAX up by almost 0.5%. The CAC in France 0.25% to the upside, and about 1/3% to the upside for the FTSE 100 in the UK. Back home, investor attention will surely be focused on the October jobs report due out in just over 3 hours from now. As you can see there, 3.5 hours to go. Economists are looking for a gain of 90,000 new jobs. That's down from 136,000 in the month of September, as you can see there. And the unemployment rate should tick slightly higher to around 3.6%. A 90,000 print, by the way, for headline jobs number would be the lowest level that we've seen since May. So let's bring in now Danielle DiMartino Booth, the CEO over at Quill Intelligence. She joins us live from Dallas this morning. Danielle, happy Friday. Thank you for the early wake-up call. Let's talk about the jobs report. You join us often to preview it. What are you looking for that will stand out this time around?
Well, I'm going to be paying pretty close attention to the sectors that are affected. I was surprised in the ADP report to see construction come in as weak as it has. Residential real estate has been a bright spot for the U.S. economy. The housing market, Chairman Jay Powell alluded to that in the press conference on Wednesday. So I'll be paying close attention. We're expecting manufacturing to be weak. We know that General Motors is going to shave at least that 46,000 jobs off of the top line. The Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that 7 indirect jobs are affected by every lost auto job. So I will definitely be looking for any signs of seepage into the services sectors, with transportation and construction being at the top of my list. So
Danielle, I mean, is it fair to say that this will be a noisy report, so to speak? Is there something that we have to kind of sift through? You mentioned GM, you mentioned some of the other kind of nuances about this particular report, but with the headline number, if it does come in at 90,000, it represents a pretty significant slowdown. Does this mean we are truly late cycle in this economic kind of development?
Look, Dom, I don't think there's any doubt that we are late cycle. Quill Intelligence ran an analysis of the ADP data, and last October at this time, there were 250,000 jobs created. Cut that in half. And in fact, the run rate over the past 6 months has been cut in half from that preceded it. And the only sector that added was financials and large services firms. Every other sector and every other size business has seen a dramatic slowing over the past 6 months. We've seen layoffs kick up with Challenger. There were healthcare jobs, technology jobs that were topping the list of October layoffs. So I don't think there's a doubt that we're very, very late cycle. I'd be surprised if we didn't have downside risk to that 90,000 that's expected.
All right, so given that forecast, given the thought that you have here that we are late cycle, there is downside risk, did the Fed do the right thing this week when it took its third step in cutting interest rates just since this summer?
Well, I think that the market pricing was almost 100% for that Fed move, and I do think that was the right thing for the Fed. They would have shocked markets had they not done that, and they are trying to get a boost out of interest rate sensitive sectors. In fact, we'll see car sales out later today, not from the big three. They now only report on a quarterly basis, but I'll actually be paying closer attention to that. And I think if I'm Chair Powell, I might even sleep through the non-farm payroll report, because the key, I think, for investors this morning is going to be that ISM report that follows it. Let's see if we have 3 straight months of declining new orders. That is a trend that's going to back any weakness that we're seeing in the labor market.
All right, so we have generally strong but slowing economic numbers compared to the rest of the world, but there has been a view from certain manufacturing indicators, from even service indicators, that this is a definite slowdown, a contraction. So if you are in a situation like this as a central banker in America, what is the appropriate course of action in the coming, say, 3, 6, 9 months?
Well, you know, this is the conundrum, because I think that Powell has backed himself into a corner by saying that he's going to be data dependent on steroids. When you have a number like the Chicago PMI come out and you see certain indicators inside of it sink to multi-cycle lows, as we saw yesterday morning, and this did not include, by the way, the effect of the General Motors strike. But that is going to make that's going to make investors and market watchers that much more sensitive to every single data point that hits the wires. And every time there's a disappointment, they're going to look straight to Jay Powell and say, where's my next rate cut? Even though he made it abundantly clear at the press conference, he does not want to continue cutting rates. He wants to shift the easing over to the balance sheet and continue growing it and not cut rates anymore. But again, I think he's backed himself into a corner.
All right, always a pleasure to get your thoughts. Danielle DiMartino Booth, we appreciate it. It's going to be a big Jobs Friday.
And by the way, go Niners. Happy for you.
I'm very happy for that 8-0 start as well. Thanks very much, Danielle. Well, it's Wall Street versus Capitol Hill as hedge fund titan Leon Cooperman opens a new can of hurt against Democratic presidential frontrunner Elizabeth Warren. Frank Holland joins us now with that drama. Frank, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Dom. Well, Cooperman is ripping into Elizabeth Warren in a critical letter that he sent to her on Wednesday. This is the latest in a war of words between the billionaire investor and the populist candidate, in a response to what Cooperman calls Warren's soak the rich positions. Now, Warren has proposed a 2% tax on families with a net worth above $50 million and a 3% tax on families worth over $1 billion. Now, Cooperman recently told Politico while he believes in a progressive income tax, he really disagrees with Warren's approach. She responded on Twitter last week, suggesting that Cooperman succeeded because of the opportunities he was given, and he should pitch in more so, quote, everyone else has a chance at the American dream too. In his letter obtained by CNBC, Cooperman says, you proceeded to admonish me as if a parent chiding an ungrateful child, and your tweet demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of who I am, what I stand for, and why I believe so many of your economic policy initiatives are misguided. Cooperman goes on to defend billionaires, saying, for you to suggest that capitalism is a dirty word and that these people as a group are ingrates who didn't earn their riches through strenuous effort indicates that you either are grossly uninformed or are knowingly warping the facts for narrow political gain. Warren firing back on Twitter, of course, saying, Leon is wrong. I'm fighting for big changes like universal child care, investing in public schools, and free public college. Cooperman previously took a shot at Warren during CNBC's Delivering Alpha event back in September.
They won't open the stock market if Elizabeth Warren is the next president. Winston Churchill says you don't make poor people rich by making rich people poor.
Now, Cooperman says he was joking about the stock market part, but he believes if Warren were elected president, that could push stocks into a bear market. Dom?
All right, well, Frank, I mean, this isn't the first time that Leon Cooperman has criticized a presidential candidate. I mean, there are other billionaires out there being critical of Elizabeth Warren as well, right?
Dom, absolutely right. Billionaire fund manager Ron Barron, who is a lifelong Democrat, has called Warren's plan nuts. His words. Cooperman has also said that Bernie Sanders, if elected, would hurt the stock market. He was also very critical of Barack Obama's tax policy before the 2012 election.
All right. The billionaires, certainly a big focus for many of those Democratic presidential candidates. Thank you very much, Frank Holland. We'll see you later on. When we come back on the show, the latest on China's push to become the dominant player in 5G. That's a big story. Plus, a silver lining for what's been an ugly year for U.S. steel. Those shares higher by 4% pre-market. And later on, Netflix goes to Broadway to lift the curtain on its near $160 million content bet. It's called The Irishman, a very busy hour still ahead when Worldwide Exchange returns right after this.
High-growth companies need to ask themselves, what is the right?
We just got back from a beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything. Or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
It's another Friday morning. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Reach the top of Mount Teede or relax on a sandy beach. Fly from London Gatwick to Tenerife with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £349 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Oh my god. OMG. Is she okay?
Yeah, she always does this. Her Uber Eats just arrived. She ordered McNuggets, so...
Oh. Shall I get the door then?
Probably best, yeah.
McDonald's delivered, exclusive to Uber Eats. Get excited.
They don't chant your name when you give blood, or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its cymbals when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, there's a check right now because we are in the month of October already, or November, and some of the biggest winners there in the month of October. Well, welcome back to the show. The race for 5G is heating up as China flicks the on switch ahead of this schedule here with some impressive results. Our own Arjun Karpal joins us now from Guangzhou, China, with the latest here. And Arjun, this is a big deal. This is China saying that it wants to be and could be the preeminent player in next-gen wireless.
That's absolutely right, Dom, because they were initially targeting a 2020 launch. They've brought it forward, showing that despite this ongoing trade war with the US, they're going to continue pushing forward with these technologies. China's 3 big state-owned carriers have rolled out 5G across 50 cities. Some of those 5G packages starting as low as $18 for about 30 gigabytes of data. They go all the way up to about $85 for about 300 gigabytes of data. And one of our colleagues in Beijing actually tried out the network, and he found that he was getting data speeds about 9 or 10 times faster than he was on the 4G network. So they are actually up and running right now. But look, there's a lot of hype around this 5G technology, and there's a lot of challenges to adoption here in China. I'd say I was speaking to some analysts earlier on today who was suggesting that perhaps the price points right now for these packages are a little too high for the Chinese consumer. The other big issue, of course, is there's not that many 5G devices on the markets, and are consumers going to be willing to fork out for what are quite expensive devices at the moment? And ultimately, can the carriers convince consumers that they need to switch over from 4G? If you're using 4G networks right now, they're pretty adequate for a lot of the things that consumers are doing, from streaming music to watching videos, and will they be convinced to switch over to 5G? Now, of course, we've been talking a lot about 5G as a race between the US and China, and President Donald Trump has said 5G is a race that the US must win. But with China's latest move, this could just give it the upper hand in this race to a 5G future. Dom, back to you.
All right, so Arjun, it's interesting because you can make a case that over the course of the past 30 to 50 years, China has in essence been playing catch up, trying to emulate or make existing technologies better, maybe even stealing some intellectual property here and there, whatever it is. So this is a big step for China to kind of make its mark. There are definitely political influences there within China, right? To kind of make this rollout go as smoothly and as effortlessly as possible, because they want the world stage to see what they can do. Is that something that's going to be at play, the politics behind 5G in China?
Well, 5G, as you mentioned there, Dom, has become a highly politicized topic, and it goes right back to this trade war, which has become somewhat of a battle over tech supremacy between the US and China. And you've seen President Donald Trump actually move to put pressure on Huawei, which is the world's largest telecom equipment maker, and it's seen as a symbol of China's growing influence abroad when it comes to technology, but also China's prowess in the 5G sphere. President Trump has been trying to convince allied countries to block Huawei from the 5G networks because he's worried that this could open the doors for espionage risks and spying risks from Beijing via Huawei's equipment. These are, of course, claims that Huawei has denied, but this is why 5G has become so politicized, because it is such a critical technology that could underpin a number of industries, through to smart cities, through to driverless cars, and the US doesn't want China to get dominance in that.
All right, high-speed computing and internet wireless technology, all of it a key focus. Arjun Karbal in Guangzhou, China. Thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. Still on deck for the show, nothing picture perfect about this stock. Why Pinterest is setting up for a rough day of trading ahead, you can see there. And later on, 54 days until Christmas. Is it too soon? But one retailer is already starting to make their Black Friday push for the holiday shopping season. And as we head to break, today's big number, it's 422,600. That's how many healthcare jobs were created in the past 12 months. Employment in healthcare is expected to grow faster than any other occupation group out there. Keep it right here. We'll be right back.
Ski moguls. Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Just because you travel doesn't mean you can't keep your routine. The more obstacles travel puts between us and our well-being, the more we strive to work well. At Westin Hotels and Resorts, we're focused on empowering your well-being. With Westin meetings, you work and feel your best with nutritious snacks and nourishing smoothies that give you the energy you need to power through any meeting. Don't leave your well-being behind. We give you the choice to get up or to rise. Search Westin online to find out more. Westin, let's rise.
Millions of people are missing out by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB offers interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. Plus, you can stop your friends and family missing out by recommending the Plus account to them. And when they switch, you'll both earn £75. Search online or visit your local branch. Terms and conditions apply.
The S in Audi S-Line stands for many things like sporty, stylish, streamlined, and now seductively priced. Like the new Audi A4 S-Line, which you can now have from £359 per month.
£2,154 initial rental. Test drive one at your local Audi centre. But you'll have to be swift. The offer ends soon. Search Audi S-Line. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik. With 48-month contract hire, 10,000 miles per annum, 18s and over, subject to status. Damage charges may apply. No ownership. Ordered by 31st of December 2019 from participating centres. Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.uk.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Tottenham and Edmonton from 10 p.m. on Friday the 1st of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 4th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
All right, the worst performing stocks in October for the Dow. What you got there is Travelers, Boeing, McDonald's, and IBM. Travelers down 12% just during the month of October. Well, let's get a check on some of the other big stocks on the move this morning. Shares of Beijing are soaring more than 30% after Amgen announced plans to buy a roughly 20% stake in the Chinese biotech company for $2.7 billion. Beijing, which focuses on cancer drugs, will take some of Amgen's treatments to the Chinese market and will split the earnings or losses, so those shares up pretty big pre-market. Pinterest also showing some slides today after the company posted a wider third quarter loss than expected. Adjusted earnings beat forecast, but revenue fell short. Costs and expenses more than doubling in that case as Pinterest spends on advertising to attract small and medium-sized businesses. Those shares off about 20% pre-market. And then we've got U.S. Steel reporting a net loss for the third quarter, but adjusted results and revenues both beat estimates, although sales dropped 18% from the same time last year amid falling prices and demand for steel-related products. Those shares up 4% right now. Well, straight ahead on the show, record cold temperatures already hammering parts of the United States. Plus, so long, New York. President Trump has a new state to call home. Worldwide Exchange is back right after this.
No matter what you tackle, there's no substitute for quality and performance. Stand out from the pack with a nearly new Mercedes-Benz from Inchcape. Experience many of the benefits of buying a brand new Mercedes-Benz, but at a used car price. Choose from a wide choice of models, colours and spec. Plus, swing low in your sweet chariot with low mileage and low monthly payments through our competitive finance options. T's and C's apply. Give Inchcape a try. Search Inchcape Mercedes-Benz for more on our nearly new car offers. Inchcape, proudly supporting Will Greenwood's rugby podcast.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Tottenham and Edmonton from 10 p.m. on Friday the 1st of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 4th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Welcome back. It's a live shot of the nation's capital there. President Trump is waking up today as only the fourth sitting president to have formal impeachment proceedings launched against him after a House vote yesterday. NBC's Tracy Potts joins us now from the nation's capital with the latest on those developments. Good morning, Tracy.
Dom, good morning. We've been hearing a lot for weeks now about impeachment, but this process is about to formally kick off. What that means is that the public will see nationally televised public hearings and get a chance to see the evidence and hear the witnesses.
The resolution is adopted
with every Republican voting against it and 2 Democrats defecting. Formal impeachment proceedings become a reality.
It's a sad day because nobody comes to Congress to impeach a president of the United States. No one.
The House vote paves the way for public hearings to begin, despite their protests.
And it happened today. It's a sham.
Republicans will continue to have input. Their lawyers can ask questions. They can call witnesses with Democrats' approval, and President Trump's attorneys can participate. But some closed-door hearings could still happen.
It gives authority for open hearings, but they cannot go back and fix what is a fundamentally tainted and unfair record.
At issue, whether President Trump traded foreign aid to get Ukraine to investigate a political rival. He says this is all about winning next year's election.
The Democrats are desperate. They're desperate. They have nothing.
Next, public hearings.
The House and the American public must see all the evidence for themselves.
Then the Judiciary Committee decides whether to draw up articles of impeachment. If approved by the full House, President Trump would head to the Senate for trial.
But first, a break. Some lawmakers are headed home for a week while others stay here to continue, at least for now, Dom, those private interviews.
Tracy, speaking of breaks, President Trump has also made a break in some way with the state of New York. He basically said that he's going to move to Florida full-time, leaving the city of Manhattan, or city of New York and Manhattan. It's interesting because I have a tweet that we have queued up here because the Democratic governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, took to Twitter to say, quote unquote, good riddance. It's not like at real Donald Trump paid taxes here anyway. He's all yours, Florida. I did check, Tracy. The Republican governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, did not have any tweets welcoming President Trump. What's the dynamic there like?
So keep in mind that not only has the president lived in Trump Tower and lived in New York, he's a New Yorker, he grew up there, but he's now under investigation by the state's attorney's office. They're digging into his finances and digging into his taxes. And you had the Cuomo statement, but the president said, look, I love New York, I love the people of New York, but the leaders of New York, he says, have treated me very badly. So he's taking off and now making Mar-a-Lago his permanent residence. All
right, West Palm Beach it is. Thanks very much, Tracy Potts, live in Washington. We appreciate it. Worldwide Exchange is back right after this.
There's golf. And there's the golf lifestyle.
It's another Friday morning. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Experience Mexican culture and relax by the Caribbean Sea. Fly from London Gatwick to Cancun with British Airways from £275 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
On a day such as this, we pray the car won't let us down. But winter sneers, and the battery bails, the bulbs blow, the wipers wipe out. Can anyone save you? Yes, you. Come to Halfords. We'll check your wiper blades, batteries, bulbs and windscreen. We'll even send you an MOT reminder, all completely free. And we're open late 7 days a week. See halfords.com for opening hours. Here in Chiswick. Ready for the cold snap? Ready for anything. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Subject to availability, exclusions apply.
Time is money. Or so money says. Well, money. I know you like to dictate every hour of every day, add to my to-do list and throw the odd spanner in the works. But not anymore. This is my business, and I run it on my watch. I'm in control now, money, and times are changing. Save time with instant business invoicing, now on the Barclays app. Search Barclays Business and make money work for you.
Must have a Barclays business account. T's and C's apply.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and V Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
New data out of China showing factory activity at a more than 2-year high. It comes as fresh concerns mount about getting a trade deal with the United States done. We are live in Beijing, coming up with the latest. Plus, investors are awaiting the release of the monthly jobs report. We'll preview those big numbers and the potential impact of the General Motors strike. And new troubles for WeWork as a former staffer files a lawsuit against ex-CEO Adam Neumann. It's Friday, November 1st, and you are watching Worldwide Exchange on CNBC. Welcome back to the show, and thanks for being with us on CNBC. I'm Dominic Chu in this morning for Brian Sullivan. Let's get a check on this morning's other top headlines. NBC's Francis Rivera live in the New York newsroom with the latest. Good morning and happy Friday, Francis.
Dom, happy Friday to you. We start this morning with officials in California who remain on high alert for the spread of wildfires overnight. The Maria fire broke out near Santa Paula and quickly exploded to 5,000 acres, forcing thousands to evacuate. It is one of several new fires that have sparked near Los Angeles. The 46th fire, as it's known, began near Riverside and has destroyed at least 3 homes. Police say it was ignited when suspects abandoned a stolen vehicle in a field. Meanwhile, the Midwest has been blanketed by an early snowstorm. Towns in Iowa and Wisconsin have reported up to 6 and 7 inches and also freezing temperatures. 4 men are now behind bars for allegedly smuggling over 800 pounds of crystal meth in more than 700 hot sauce bottles. Police say they found the drugs in sriracha bottles packed in boxes at a Sydney freight depot last month. Authorities say the crystal meth was worth an estimated $210 million. Police also seized 8 boxes from a vehicle, and another 26 boxes were found in a hotel suite. A whole lot of crystal meth, John, but I'm thinking about all that sriracha that totally went to waste. And if you love sriracha like me.
I know. I love sriracha. I love it. I keep that stuff around the house all the time. Most people keep Frank's Red Hot around, but sriracha is my hot sauce of choice. So
somewhere in the universe, there is, 700 bottles worth of it.
I'm going to make sure that my hot sauce doesn't have crystal meth in it. Francis Rivera, thank you very much, and have a good Friday. Well, here's how you and your money and investments are looking right now. We are halfway through the 5 a.m. hour Eastern time. Stock futures indicating the Dow will open up slightly higher by about 50 points. The Dow is coming, by the way, off its worst day since October 18th. The S&P 500 is trying to bounce back from its worst day since October 22nd. All of this happening on that weaker than expected Chicago PMI report yesterday. Well, to Asia now, new manufacturing data out of China coming in hotter than expected. Eunice Yoon joins us now from Beijing with the latest. And Eunice, this seems like a big contradiction. Official government data on factory orders and services comes in worse than expected, and then all of a sudden, it's bullish for the private sector reads. What gives?
Yeah, exactly. This private sector survey showed that factory activity came in at its fastest pace in 2 years. This is the October Caixin manufacturing PMI, and it came in at 51.7 versus the estimate of 51.0. So a lot of analysts believe that the surprise bump came in because of a temporary tariff exemption granted by the U.S. in September on Chinese products. And so that could be the reason why we are seeing the surprise lift. So meanwhile, China's Communist Party wrapped up a 4-day meeting here on policy this week, which at the end of the day emphasized the need to strengthen the party leadership with President Xi Jinping at its core. The communique, which was highlighted by officials today, stressed the importance of increasing Communist Party supervision and control at all levels of governance, the role of the state to guide economic policy, and safeguarding Chinese sovereignty with a special mention to perfect Hong Kong's freer governing system, so they use the word perfect, and laws involving national security. So international companies are taking this to mean that very likely, Dom, at least on the trade talks, it doesn't look very good for Beijing to be willing to compromise on some of the tougher issues such as state subsidies.
All right, so Eunice, I mean, speaking of increased supervision, you have to figure that the Politburo and the leaders in China are scrutinizing what's happening with 5G wireless and its rollout very closely. How critical is this for the leadership in China to make sure that the world knows or sees what's happening with their 5G rollout?
Well, they think this 5G rollout is really, really important. So the services have launched as of today. They're super cheap, only $18 per month. We were testing out the 5G technology, and it was really, really fast. In fact, we were comparing a Huawei phone and an iPhone, and when you looked at the services between 5G and 4G, it was 10 times as fast with the Huawei phone. And that's going to be an issue, potentially, for the iPhone and for Apple, because Huawei, as well as some of the other Chinese companies here, are the ones that have the 5G-enabled phones. And in this market, well, I guess in all the markets, Apple doesn't yet have a 5G-enabled phone. So there has been a lot of discussion here about how that's going to be a potential issue for Apple going forward in this market.
All right, it's a big deal for sure. And, of course, everybody's using even more and more data all across the globe. Eunice Yoon live in China with us for the latest on everything with trade and, of course, 5G wireless. Well, a new chapter is opening in the streaming wars, speaking of wireless technology, as Apple jumps into the crowded field of competitors. Apple TV Plus launches today as the company continues its quest to remake itself as a more services-oriented company. Apple TV Plus costs $4.99 a month, $4.99, or is free for a year if you buy a new iPhone, iPad, or Mac product. But it has much less content than rivals like Netflix or the upcoming Disney Plus streaming service, with just 9 shows to start. So let's talk a little bit more about this now with Tim Lesko, principal and partner at Granite Investment Advisors. Also with us is Rebecca Rubin, a news editor over at Variety, who covers a lot of these streaming content companies. Folks, thank you so much for being here with us. And perhaps, Rebecca, we'll start with you. This is important. How important is it for the overall landscape in Hollywood, movie production in general, for Apple to be launching this alongside Disney, Netflix, and everybody else who wants to come into the space?
Yeah, well, now these companies are punching up against each other. They're trying to offer quality content and showing that a diverse range of companies are able to come into this service and, compete against traditional studios.
So Tim, this is something that has to be part of the investment thesis for every company that's getting into it, right? I mean, Apple's core business is not video production. It makes hardware, but it wants to be viewed more as such. So how important as an investor are you watching this particular launch of Apple TV Plus?
Well, I think as an investor, we're watching Apple's goal of trying to be the consolidator of video content, right? They're the place that they want people to go to watch either their content or other people's content. So you have to add Apple TV Plus to what was already existing, and that's in the form of Apple TV, where you can access your digital media, whether it be your home digital media, your home movies, your home pictures, as well as content that you're buying from other people in Apple TV Plus. So it's a much broader offering from Apple than just the 9 shows that we're seeing that are being launched today. But what Apple wants to do is create that Roach Motel effect that you're paying them to access your digital content.
But it's also about the arms race, right? I mean, we're talking 9 shows on Apple TV Plus right now, but bigger libraries at Netflix and bigger libraries at Disney Plus. So, Rebecca, as we talk about this idea of content, we are seeing hundreds of millions of dollars paid for rights to shows. We're seeing billions of dollars spent on original content. How much of that is going to be critical for the success of these content companies as they create more shows? Some of these shows are not exactly coming out to acclaimed reviews, let's say.
Right, and at this point, we don't really know what the appetite is for the number of streaming services that people are willing to subscribe to, and they're certainly accustomed to at least subscribing to probably Netflix, usually more than one, but we don't know if they're going to have an appetite to subscribe to 7, 8, even 10 streaming services. And so the way these companies are trying to then distinguish themselves is through offering critically acclaimed programs.
I mean, look at this. The graphic that we're showing right now. Basically, if I want to subscribe to all of these particular services, Hulu, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, Netflix, Apple TV Plus, HBO Max, I'm going to be paying like $60, $70, $80 a month for these streaming services. So much for cutting the cord and saving money, right, Timmy? I mean, this is interesting here.
Well, that's why each of these companies is coming at this from a different angle, right? You have AT&T getting into streaming wars with the content they own, trying to deliver your cellular services. You have Disney, who recognizes that people are going to be leaving traditional cable, so they need to have an over-the-top offering. So really the companies that we need to look at are the Comcasts of the world and the Charter Communications of the world.
The ones who own the pipes.
The one that owns the pipes, because content is becoming king. So they're all trying to fight to create the content that drives subscribers and keep them.
So let's, Tim, to follow up on that. I mean, if you're trying to figure out which stocks or which companies are going to emerge as winners in this whole process and where you allocate capital, what exactly are you looking for out of all of these companies? We know Netflix is the dominant player right now, but what will give you some indication that other companies are the better investments to make in this particular industry?
Well, certainly it's going to be subscriber growth. You have different business models in each case. If you begin to see the Verizons and the AT&Ts of the world delivering video content and increasing their cellular subscribers because they have compelling content, they'll end up being the winner. It's really about keeping eyeballs.
All right, so keeping eyeballs also involves, Rebecca, a massive amount of content. We know that Netflix has placed a very large bet on this show, The Irishman. A lot of star power, De Niro, Scorsese, all of these guys are in this. Take us through what exactly, from a news perspective in Hollywood, this will mean for the future of streaming. How critical of a bellwether is The Irishman going to be?
This is Netflix saying that they are able to attract the best of the best in entertainment. They have a director in Martin Scorsese. They have a cast of Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. This is them saying, come work with us. We will give you the budget you need to make your product, and we'll work with you to make it the highest quality it can be. And so it's a calling card for other filmmakers to follow suit.
So this is a huge deal for sure, guys. Yeah. Tim Lesko, Rebecca Rubin, thank you very much for being here with us this morning on All Things Streaming.
Thanks for having me.
Well, coming up on the show, it may be a new trading month, but famed short seller Jim Chanos will likely want to keep his October hot streak rolling. The calls he made on two notable companies that led to a historic month for Mr. Chanos, and talk about promotion problems, how Chick-fil-A's efforts to drum up sales ended up backfiring. It's what's trending, and that's coming up next.
Dana-Farber Cancer Institute.
We just got back from a beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. We dropped off our Christmas shopping at the hotel. Then it was off to be spellbound at the Theatre Royal Bath. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
It's another Friday morning. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick, and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Time is money. Or so money says. Well, money. I know you like to dictate every hour of every day, add to my to-do list and throw the odd spanner in the works. But not anymore. This is my business, and I run it on my watch. I'm in control now, money, and times are changing. Save time with instant business invoicing, now on the Barclays app. Search Barclays Business and make money work for you.
Must have a Barclays business account. T's and C's apply.
All right, that right there is a look at the NASDAQ October winners out there. Align Technology, you can see they're up 40% for the month, and Tesla up 31% as well. Biogen and Lam Research make up the top 4. Let's find out what else you will be talking about today. Time for this morning's top trending stories, and Frank Holland is here with those. Frank, I'm getting hungry already.
Are you getting hungry already?
I
So
am.
what about a chicken sandwich for breakfast?
I would love a chicken sandwich for breakfast right now.
All right. Well, do you ever crave Chick-fil-A on a Sunday? You can have it for breakfast, but just not on a Sunday. Chick-fil-A, they sent out an email to some of their loyal customers forgetting that the store is closed on Sunday, apparently just forgetting its own schedule, and then urging customers to visit the store on National Sandwich Day. Problem is, it falls on a Sunday this year. The company quickly sent out what people are calling an awkward follow-up email, apologizing for all the confusion. Some customers were quick to point out that National Sandwich Day also falls on the return of the Popeye's chicken sandwich.
This is you're telling me that the drama is heating up right now because the chicken sandwich wars are going hot on this particular move, right?
What's hotter, streaming wars or chicken sandwich wars?
I would say the streaming wars have a lot more money behind them, but I'm more interested in what's happening with the chicken sandwich wars.
There is some money behind the chicken sandwich stores, though. Popeye saw its same-store sales grow by 10% last quarter. A lot on the strength of these chicken sandwiches. I haven't had one.
So, yes, because Restaurant Brands, which owns them, looked at Popeye's chicken sandwich, and also the Impossible Whopper is driving all that traffic, so it'll be a big deal.
Always a big deal.
Yeah, right.
Anything that people can tweet about.
Yes.
All right, well, with Halloween out of the way, U.S. retailers are looking ahead to another big holiday, Black Friday. Kohl's has released this Black Friday ad, making it the first U.S. retailer to do so for the second straight year. The company posted its 64-page sale on its website 4 weeks ahead of the shopping event. Stores will open on Thanksgiving evening, a little bit controversial for Black Friday shopping, though some deals may be available as early as the Monday before.
So I don't necessarily disagree with this. I know people are going to say, oh, it's too early, too soon. We're not even at Thanksgiving yet, whatever. But I kind of feel like the more people know about these things ahead of time, the more they're thinking about it, and the more Kohl's is front of mind when it comes to like, hey, where am I going to go on Black Friday?
Great point. Online, who cares? Opening on Thanksgiving, I think, can be tough for a lot of people because if you think about it, you open the store at 5 p.m. That's when most people are kind of sitting down for dinner, so it is a little bit tough, but I'm sure it's a big boost for sales.
All right, well, Black Friday, always a big deal. Frank Holland, thank you very much for those trending stories. Well, in sports now, the Arizona Cardinals hosted the undefeated San Francisco 49ers, my Bay Area San Francisco 49ers, to kick off Week 9 of the NFL season.
This is biased journalism.
Yes, this game was a close one, Frank, closer than I would have liked. Arizona, the first to get on the board after the new addition, running back Kenyon Drake, scores a 4-yard touchdown run. San Francisco quickly answers to kind of tie things up before expanding its lead to 21-7 at the half. I wanted to turn it off, but I couldn't. Arizona manages to bounce back in the fourth, but it is not enough. The 49ers scrape by, and they say undefeated. It was a 28-25 victory. Jimmy Garoppolo, 300-plus yards passing and 4 touchdowns. It's been decades since that's happened.
Scrape by is the key word. The defense really wins the games for this team. Let's just keep it honest.
I'm just saying.
I don't mean to jump in on your segment, but I have to check you a little bit.
They're undefeated. Undefeated.
It's still early.
Coming up on deck for the show. The troubles continue for WeWork as the company now faces a lawsuit over the alleged actions by former CEO Adam Newman. Plus, as we await the monthly jobs report, CNBC's Kate Rogers will reveal the one sector that's looking to go on a big hiring spree.
What is your lotion wish? Coconut oil?
Cocoa butter, shea butter.
It's another Friday morning. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London? Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and be unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hey, you. We didn't make Nature Valley crunchy bars so you could just sit and scoff them in front of the TV. Not when you could be enjoying them outdoors. Up here! Race it to the top! With 100% whole grain oats and delicious honey. Nature Valley Crunchy. Get out more.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. You'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty, and now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
All right, time for your executive recap. The headlines you need in 60 seconds. Former WeWork CEO Adam Neumann is facing a new legal challenge after his former chief of staff filed a lawsuit against the company. The suit claims Neumann supported a substantial pay gap between male and female employees, smoked marijuana in front of her, and then discriminated against her and other women for becoming pregnant and taking maternity leave. Now, in the statement, a WeWork spokesperson said the company plans to, quote, vigorously defend itself against these claims, end quote. Well, October proved to be a good month for renowned short seller Jim Chanos. According to the Financial Times, his firm Kinnikos Capital Partners saw one of its most profitable months in the firm's history, thanks to bets against PG&E and Grubhub. And the remaining Barney stores could shutter after a judge signed off on a bankruptcy plan. Under the deal, Authentic Brands Group will assume ownership of the luxury department store. In addition to closing the remaining stores, Barney's brand name would be licensed to Saks Fifth Avenue. Well, we are just over 2 hours away from the release of the big monthly jobs report. The cybersecurity sector is one area that will be looking for a few good candidates to help close what's expected to be a major gap in the coming years to keep companies safe. And CNBC's Kate Rogers joins us now with more on that story. Good morning, Kate.
Hi, Dom. Good morning. Right now, some 2 million people work in cybersecurity roles around the globe, but there's a skilled labor shortage of about 4 million workers needed to properly defend organizations, and about 500,000 of those workers are needed to fill roles right here in the United States. Firms like TDI, where we're live today in Washington, D.C., are looking for both developers to create security programs as well as cyber analysts like Mandy Ingersoll, who started her cybersecurity career in the Navy.
It's interesting because it's always something new. You're never looking at the same thing. It doesn't really get boring. It's always something new to learn. And it's important because this is not only critical to, commercial and private sector sites, but also federal government and military.
Now, TDI has competitive pay and benefits, as well as tuition and training stipends and programs within the organization to help invest in employees so that they can grow their careers. But CEO Paulinello says he's noticed something as the labor market's gotten tighter. People have ghosted the company when they invite them in for interviews. They haven't shown up all the time to come in and potentially get hired here. Some have even gotten jobs and then not shown up because there are so many jobs and so few workers. And one added piece of difficulty here is that Amazon's coming to town. So, of course, the fight for tech talent right here in Washington, D.C. is going to get even tougher, Dom. Back over to you.
So Kate, do potential candidates need to any sort of kind of issue or degree to get hired in those situations?
So we talked to the HR manager here yesterday. She said entry-level positions really can start you anywhere from $50,000 a year up to $150,000 a year. A degree will obviously get you more money. There's also training certifications that you can go in for. So the more certifications you have, the higher pay you can get. But Mandy, who we spoke to, who's been working in this field for many years, she's working toward her bachelor's degree right now, which will help her grow her career. But you don't necessarily need that 4-year degree to come in and do this when you're just starting out.
All right, great story on a big jobs day. Thanks very much to Kate Rogers live in D.C. For more on what we can expect today, joining me now is RBC Capital Markets Chief U.S. Economist Tom Porcelli. Tom, good morning to you.
Good morning.
I always like to call the jobs number the granddaddy of them all, because in my mind, for years, it has been the most important piece of economic data that we get from the government. If that's still the case, is the jobs number important to the economic thesis?
I like to call it my most hated economic report.
And why?
Because it's so noisy and messy. There's so much volatility. And I think people try to draw these broad, big, sweeping conclusions based on a single print. And I think if you try to do that today, I think you're going to be in for a world of hurt. Because there's going to be a lot of noise in this report because of the GM strike. I think hopefully as appreciated, although listening to some people, I don't think it is appreciated. You know, GM is worth at least $50,000 on this payroll report. And I say at least $50,000. It could be well north of $100,000 because GM obviously had all these sort of periphery companies that got sucked into it as well. So, you know, we'll see how it shakes out, but I wouldn't read too much into this single report. I think if you want to make a sort of a case for where are we from a labor backdrop perspective, then I think you just look at jobless claims. And what we know from jobless claims is that there's not a hint of stress in the labor backdrop.
All right, so, and that is high frequency or higher frequency data, right?
Yeah.
We get it every week. You kind of get a better picture of trends and everything. So is it fair to say that the employment picture, although it could show some real signs of slowing down, is not pointing to a recessionary threat anytime soon?
Yeah, I think people have to keep in mind, like, it's not a hyperbole or a guess. You know, job growth has slowed down, but slowing down to, you know, we're averaging roughly 140,000 jobs thus far this year. That doesn't necessarily mean that sort of the next stop is, you know, 0, and the next stop after that is minus 100. I mean, we will get there at some point, obviously, but it doesn't have to happen in this sort of quick succession. You can sort of linger here, which is exactly what we expect will happen. Again, in the context, again, these are not guesses. It's all in the context of we have a really tight labor market right now. You know, we've been fond of telling people, you know, we have 1.5 million more job openings than we do the number of unemployed in the United States, right? This is a stat that, or this is a fact that we've never seen in the history of the data.
And you're referring to the job opening,
exactly.
labor turnover.
So labor markets are tight, and thus it's really easy to make the case that you'll see continued wage pressure, and that's the thing that can obviously help propel consumption.
Let's talk about you as an economist and how you reconcile some of this data. You say that there is no real stress out there that you see. Yet every time we kind of see some of these headlines with regard to manufacturing data, let's not even talk about abroad. Let's just talk right here in the U.S. Chicago PMI yesterday, certain ISM indicators, certain manufacturing gauges from regional Fed departments and regions. How do you, as an economist, take that data and then say, hey, things are not really that stressed?
Yeah, so what I would say is there are definitely some points of stress, and I think manufacturing is a sort of a great example of that. When we look at the sort of the broader backdrop, we feel pretty comfortable with where we are. But there's no question that manufacturing has been under pressure, and a lot of that obviously relates to trade. And what's very interesting is that you actually see this divergence in the soft data versus the hard data. So the soft data, things like ISM, sentiment-related measures, they have actually continued to perform pretty poorly, whereas the hard data have held up, you know, a bit better. In fact, interestingly enough, there's even a divergence within the soft data, right? So if you look at like ISM, ISM has obviously performed very poorly, but if you look at the regional PMIs, the Chicago report notwithstanding from yesterday, the regional PMIs have actually held up much better in ISM adjusted terms. So, you know, even within the sentiment data, there's sort of a schism. And again, we know why that's the case. It's all related to trade for the most part. And GM obviously recently has added some stress points.
We've just got a few moments left here in the show. Take us through what exactly is going to be the most important thing that you look for today in the number for jobs.
You know, I think that it's going to be really hard to look at this report and be able to just cherry pick one or two key things, because the reality is that the GM report is going to be sort of littered throughout.
All right. Thank you very much, Tom Porcelli, for everything jobs related. Appreciate you for being here. Well, that does it for the show here this morning. The move is going to be big. Markets are setting up modestly higher if these gains hold into the cash equities trading. The Dow would open up by about 50 points if these things stay into the opening bell. Big jobs report in just a few moments, a couple hours here. Squawk Box picks up coverage right now.
Good morning. A showdown between Wall Street and Washington. Leon Cooperman and Senator Elizabeth Warren sparring over economic policy.
Good riddance. New York's governor sounding off after President Trump changed his official residence to Florida.
And the October jobs report isn't the only big test for the markets today. We're going to reveal the other data point that Wall Street will be watching closely. It's Friday, November 1st, 2019, and Squawk Box begins right now.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick along with Andrew Ross Sorkin. Joe is out today, but Joe Terranova is here with us. He's going to be sitting in all morning. It's good to see you, Joe.
Good to see you too, Becky. Boy, the set is beautiful.
Thank you.
You get to see each other.
You get to see each other, and you have to make sure you stay in shape, that's for sure. You can see everything. I did sit-ups before I came here.
Yeah, we let it all hang out here this morning. Joe, of course, is a CNBC contributor. He's also Senior Managing Director at Virtus Investment Partners. His take on all of these things, we're going to get it through the morning. If you want to check things out right now for the U.S. equity futures, you'll see that we are looking at some green arrows. Yesterday, you did see a decline. Stocks yesterday, Dow down by 140 points. That's a decline of only 0.5%, but believe it or not, you were looking at the weakest performance for the market since October 18th. Tells you a little bit about how strong the end of the month has been. Right now, futures indicated up by about 50 points for the Dow. S&P looks like it would open up by 6 points. And then the NASDAQ up by 20 points. Of course, all of this is riding on the big number.
On the big number, and that is Jobs Friday. We're here already. The month always comes faster than you think. Polled forecasters expecting an increase of 75,000 non-farm jobs and an increase in the unemployment rate to 3.6%. The payroll numbers will be weighed down by the 40-day strike at General Motors by union workers. Striking workers who do not receive a paycheck during the survey period are treated as unemployed. That's important to think about. That strike ended last Friday, but it's a number and a data point that I imagine we'll all be talking about in just a little bit.
Overnight in China, some new data showed that factory activity shrank for the 6th straight month in October. Analysts had expected it to pick up a little bit from last month. Of course, all of this raises the stakes for the trade war and what's been happening out there. Eunice Yoon joins us right now. She has more on those numbers and what it might mean. Eunice.
Thanks so much, Becky. Well, that official number was actually quite different from the private survey that came out today from Caixin, which showed that factory activity actually expanded at its fastest pace in 2 years. And the discrepancy could be because the private survey tracks small and medium-sized companies as opposed to the official one, which tends to follow large companies. But in any case, and either way, most analysts believe that the surprise bump that we saw in the private number could be because of the U.S. granted temporary tariff exemptions in September on Chinese goods. So separate from that, China, in a step to try to prove that it is going to become a tech powerhouse, launched 5G services across the nation. So the goal here is to have 50,000 base stations for 5G in 50 cities by the end of the year. And the services so far are very, very cheap. They're going right now for as little as $18 a month. We were testing out a Huawei 5G-enabled phone versus an iPhone, which was on 4G, because so far that's all it can detect. And the Huawei 5G phone was 10 times as fast. So that could potentially bode poorly for the iPhone's prospects here. At least that's what a lot of analysts believe, because the fact that the government here is being very aggressive about its rollout for 5G. The operators, China Telecom, China Unicom, and China Mobile, are also very aggressively marketing the 5G services. Not everyone is convinced that 5G, though, is going to be a huge advantage for Huawei, at least in the beginning, because when we were testing out the different services, what was interesting is that you could still download videos and apps pretty fast on 4G. But the big question is, how is this all going to play out once everything is connected to the internet? So, like if you have a driverless car, for example, in that kind of world. So still big questions as to exactly how this is all going to play out.
Hey, Eunice, let's start with just the numbers in terms of the decline in some of the factory production from the official numbers that come through on this. What does that mean for trade talks? What's the sort of appetite for a trade talk or trade deal or even just a trade truce at this point?
Well, I think that we are seeing the pain in the manufacturing sector, but what appears to be clearer and clearer is that the Chinese authorities are willing to take on that pain for a while in order to make sure it doesn't get a deal that it doesn't want to see. So there's a willingness, I think, on the part of the Chinese to make some compromises on things that they don't see as important to them. But on issues such as state subsidies or some of the important ways in which they run their economy, they're not so willing to move. And I think that was even highlighted further because today happened to be a day when the authorities were talking about a major 4-day meeting that took place this week in China, which was all about strengthening the party leadership, making sure that President Xi Jinping is going to be the core of that leadership. The communique that came out said that the state is going to have a very, very important role. They said that the state has an invisible hand in the economic priorities, and also it was all about how the party needed to improve its supervision and control of governance at all levels. So the message that was being sent from that meeting on the trade talks was that the government here is not going to want to give in on state subsidies or on any matters that would make it look weak.
You know, state subsidies in particular has not been something that I've heard talked about as one of the main priorities from Washington. But state subsidies, that's a bigger issue they have with the WTO and the rest of the world in general, isn't it?
It is, but it's still, very important for the government here. I mean, the way that and especially now, one of the things that I heard that more recently among some China experts who are Chinese, they were saying that the message that they're getting a lot now from President Trump and the entire administration is that it's important for China to be self-reliant. And that's another word that we saw in the communique, that the government here needs to make sure that China is self-reliant on a lot of different levels. And so for them, that means they need even more state subsidies. So it's a very confusing message. When I was reading through the communique, they were talking about specifically on the economy. They said that they wanted to make sure that they had a visible and an invisible hand. And so it means that you want to strengthen the role of the government. At the same time, you want to encourage the private sector. So you could see that conflict playing out.
Hey, Eunice, real quick before you go, just back to the Huawei situation, because we talk about it so much on this show. And I've been so worried, frankly, about the fact that the U.S., may very well be behind ultimately when it comes to 5G. How much of the rollout that you're seeing is being juxtaposed with what we're doing here in the U.S. versus what they're really doing in China and this iPhone issue that you just discussed?
Well, in the state press, it's being juxtaposed quite a bit. So today, again, the Communist Party paper, the Global Times, had a feature piece about how the U.S. is lagging behind in 5G, and then they're the ones that are going to lose out. And that in China, we are racing ahead in all sorts of technology. So there is definitely an emphasis on how, because the U.S. is, from China's perspective, being narrow-minded about this issue and on 5G, that the consumers there are going to suffer.
Right. Okay. Eunice Yoon, thank you so very much. The complicated part is we will have faster 5G in this country. It will just cost that much more. And because of the way
cost more from the consumer's perspective, from the telco's perspective?
The build out of the infrastructure in the U.S. is so much more expensive than the build out there, because what's happening is they're using what's called low band and mid band spectrum, which can go around through walls, around stuff. It can't go as fast, actually, but you need a lot less
towers.
A lot less towers. You need a lot less microcells. It just requires less infrastructure. We're going to get super duper fast 5G when we get it, but you need thousands of these microcells, and they have to be actually relatively close to you because it's running at a high frequency.
They have to be line of sight, too?
Not completely line of sight, but relatively close. By the way, they're doing it in some big NFL stadiums right now, and there are parts of the stadium that can't get 5G, and you need that many microcells, even in one stadium, to get it to work properly.
It's an issue in a place like New York City.
It's a huge issue in New York City. Yeah. Anyway, we will see how this all rolls out, but it's a big fight and debate among the technologists and the telecom guys about who's going to win this and how much it's going to cost. Let's talk about WeWork, because this is a fascinating story. Ousted WeWork CEO Adam Neumann facing a new legal challenge this morning. His former chief of staff is now suing him, the We company, as well, accusing Neumann of discriminating against her and other women for becoming pregnant and taking maternity leave. The company is also accused of sustaining a substantial gender pay gap. His chief of staff said a new male that was hired for the same position when she was out was offered an annual salary of $400,000, while she was paid just $150,000. She said Neumann asked her about her plans to get married and become pregnant during her job interview and referred to her maternity leave as vacation. She said that she had to disclose her pregnancy after Neumann smoked marijuana on a charter flight in front of her, and that she had to tell him she couldn't travel with him anymore. WeWork has said it has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination and intends to vigorously defend itself against this claim. But it's just another example of a culture that, first of all, unfortunately, it's believable.
I know.
There's very little in that. In this, I read the suit where you say to yourself, "This doesn't make sense." You think to yourself, "It actually makes a lot of sense based on everything that's come out already." So.
Especially the smoking pot on the plane and having to tell them that.
Right, and just by the way, it's a young culture. I don't know if anybody knows the rules. I don't know if anybody understands what's right and what's wrong.
Disparage young people by calling it a young culture.
No, I know, but I think that it's a younger culture, and it is
led by a guy who thinks he's Jesus. I mean, that's
the behavior is repulsive,
right?
And the impact on the market. There has been an impact on the market, and the impact on the market is that the money has come out of the IPO market.
Yep.
And it's actually a positive impact, because the money is now flowing back into mega cap technology, large cap technology, finding where there are quality cash companies
and where you might eventually have a profit.
Right. Where you have sustainable earnings over time. That's actually good for the market. So this money that's coming out of the IPO market is actually